really is a city, state, or national treasure. It's priceless.
Exodus and Dance just really demonstrates the resiliency of New York City, the resiliency of NYCHA, the resiliency of art. The fact that this has stood here for over 8 actually gives me the chills, and I swear it's not because I'm cold. It's just incredible.
And congratulations to the Fulton Art Fair for getting us to this point. And congratulations to the residents who participated in the visioning sessions and discussions about the restoration process. About 6 years ago, the concept was to ensure the renovation of the wall and do it with residents who would learn about the history surrounding why Richmond Bartay designed Exodus and Dance, who he was as an artist, and why it landed here in Kingsborough.
History is in all of us, all around us. And not just here, we thank Weeksville. I hope and pray that y'all can connect to make sure that the community know that we have so much rich history here that it's overflowing. You could go to Brownsville on Pickens Avenue. I restored that. You could go to Heritage House. You could go to Saratoga Park. Look at how much history we have. And thank God for the funding of City Council. We were able to restore a priceless piece of art in Saratoga Park. So, Kingsborough, this is your house.
So we're excited to be able to work on this. We're learning a lot about art restoration, what it means to the community, and how it creates a sense of place. We're learning how it creates a sense of cultural heritage. We're learning from the residents. We're learning from our partners at Weeksville, Fulton Art Fair. It's wonderful to be able to collaborate with them and to learn from them. And it's an exciting opportunity for us. So, as was mentioned, Richmond Bartay first constructed the wall in 1939. It was part of the Public Works Administration. It was commissioned, and what's unique about it is that it's actually a concrete frieze.
Mellon Foundation has also made some investments right across the street at Weeksville, and so there is an investment in partnership and continued programming and engaging artists as well.
Good afternoon, yet it's still good morning. I used to walk through here 5-6 years ago and wondered what this piece of artwork was about. And then we got involved with Black Lives Matter. And I found out that this is what Black Lives Matter means. And it's up to us as a community to make it meaningful. And that's what inspired me to approach Councilmember Samuels, was it 6 years ago or 5 years ago, and say something has to be done to maintain this legacy. I was hearing stories about, I hate to paint a swan auction offering to help, and my fear was, yes, they would help and it would go away, as many art objects in communities tend to do, end up in a museum where the people in the community don't get to experience them. Art should be in a location that people can experience it. And that's one of the goals of Fulton Art Fair, is to continue the legacy of art. So it became very important to me to continue the legacy of Richmond Bartay and to glorify his work. His work is in all of the major museums, and we have to educate our young people.
Good afternoon, I'm Storyteller Gordon, skinny kid from Brooklyn who writes and spoken word artist, and I'm here with
Taryn Jones, Public Housing Community Fund, after we do it, Community Programming Placemaking Lead at the Public Housing Community Fund.
And I'm Larry Weeks, President of Fulton Art Fair.
And we're here to discuss Exodus and Dance and the restoration of this artwork. So what I would like to ask is give us a snapshot of your experience working on the project across the year since the groundbreaking.
You want to kick it off?
Well, since the groundbreaking, we've been doing a lot of work with the senior center in projects relating to the frieze. So that's been very uplifting, and that I've been creating artwork based upon Richmond Barthé's work, using that as a basis, and then the residents have interpreted and colored it and added to it to keep a connection to the frieze.
Yeah, I think coming out of the initial kind of idea for the project, the Artist in Residency, which Mr. Weeks has been leading, has been organizing programming, and we've been working through a lot of other contractors in the city to make the design for the site more accessible and highlight the different aspects of the frieze.
Personally, I was not so familiar with Exodus and dance. So why would you suggest that it's important for people to come out and see this?
I mean, beyond its legacy, it's been here for almost 100 years.
Right.
So,
Well, 1948 it was installed there. So also it's by a African American artist. It's a piece that's constructed and designed by African American artist Richmond Barthé, and his work is in all the major museums across the country. So I think it's important that we maintain a legacy of artists, and that this is a piece of artwork that's in the community. And there was really no documentation of who the artist was, what it was about, even the title of it. Everybody just referred it to as The Wall.
Wow.
And then, doing research, we found that the artists referred to it as Exodus and Dance. So it's important that we take hold of things in our community and maintain them. So that's what's important.
So we're talking about the intersection of not only historical significance and African American significance, but community significance and art significance. I think like that alone tells me it's something that a lot of people should take an interest in possibly seeing. How has the response been since its restoration?
I think the response has been great. We've engaged with residents throughout this year through different public programs and private programs with different steering groups that have been helping us inform the new design and restoration process. So we've been engaging a lot of residents and having different public art programs for them to participate in and learn more about the frieze and other artwork in the area.
Yeah, because it's located right across the street from Weeksville Heritage Center. So you have a small cultural hub that's developing in the area. So I think it's important that that culture is in the neighborhoods and that it doesn't get. I mean, one of my biggest concerns is that one of the museums would come in and say, this needs to be in the museum again, and it gets removed. But fortunately, through the city council funding and other funding, it's being restored and returned to the neighborhood.
Take one, action.
I'm Alex Zablocki, the Executive Director of the Public Housing Community Fund. This is an historic project that we're implementing in NYCHA and for public housing residents as we restore Exodus and Dance, a historic frieze at Kingsborough Houses by the artist Richmond Barthé for the residents of Kingsborough Houses and for the broader community of Crown Heights. This project was inspired by the residents of Kingsborough Houses themselves. Starting in 2018, thanks to their hard work in securing capital funding to restore Exodus and Dance, after a multi-year effort of design work by NYCHA's Capital Unit, the Fund for Public Housing, also known as the Public Housing Community Fund, was proud to secure $2 million from the Mellon Foundation to support the restoration of this historic frieze and bring other services to the community, like an artist in residency program, an oral history project, and we're working on NYCHA's first story walk to complement all of this work over the next 2 years.
You want to start?
I think it's been really pretty exciting. I mean, especially just to see the artwork being restored. And also to engage the community of Kingsborough Houses around this artwork, around who this community has been for the last 50 years, and what people feel are the core values and aspects of the community that they want to sort of really let the world know.
What did you learn, gain, and observe while researching in the Kingsborough community?
What did we learn or get access to? Meditating on it.
Well, I think there's never been as much energy in the community, and that's what we're hoping to generate and to learn and to teach. That again, it's a cultural mecca. It's something, and a lot of the history of the Frieze that we want to maintain that, because there will be prior there was no biography of the artist, there was no history, so that will become part of the Frieze as a permanent education point. And we'll do such things as have signage at the local train stations and around the area that will direct foot traffic to the Frieze. And also working with funding from Partnership for Public Housing, there'll be also a story walk that's being under development that the Kingsborough residents are taking a lot of interest in developing that project.
Yeah, we sort of saw the call for this story walk to kind of celebrate this amazing artist, Harlem Renaissance artist, Bartis. And it also was this opportunity for us two to collaborate. You know, Ifeoma and I have known each other for a while, we have similar practices, but really in that spirit of collaboration, generosity, and community engagement, we said, why don't we go for this together and really use this as an opportunity to learn from one another and how we work with community to sort of produce together public art.
It's beautiful. So how do we expand it from Kingsborough to more of Brooklyn? Like, Brooklyn is so culturally rich that a significant art piece like this should be synonymous with Brooklyn as a whole. Like, people should want to come to Brooklyn and see this, same way they see any museum, how they see different significant buildings. How do we create a narrative where that is the story?
I think that's the point of the story walk. I think we're going to have examples of the artwork and its inspiration throughout the neighborhood, at least Weeksville, kind of Crown Heights neighborhood. But also, we've learned a lot from residents and their personal connection to the frieze or the wall, and how they came to know it, what experiences they have while being around the frieze. And so we're able to, and those people are, you know, some have stayed in the area, some have moved away. So definitely the story extends beyond Brooklyn, and where all the residents of other people who have engaged with the site can connect with, even though they may not have been there before.
And Fulton Art Fair is traditionally has been a Bed-Stuy based element, and technically there's a lot of flux with identifying the area. Yes, it was part of Weeksville. Also, it's at some points it was identified as part of Bed-Stuy, going all up to St. Mark's. So we'll be doing in March of 2025 an art walk type thing, and we planned on having the frieze as part of that art walk, and also Weeksville. So we'll be educating the public about the events, about the frieze and Weeksville, and maintaining that history, as well as starting off or keeping the historical presence of Bedford-Stuyvesant.
Being, for me to take your turn, being architectures of this space, what do you see it as 5 years from now in the development of what this could be for Kingsborough, for the Kingsborough neighborhood?
Well, you know, when our first workshop, we did a game called Family Feud, where we asked people to talk about their memories of arriving at Kingsborough. What was their own migration story?
I was a kid living here, and we used to play all up on the wall.
All up on it, right.
They had, but the whole this project was completely different.
Right.
You know, we were literally spots.
Okay.
It was like maybe like a couple of black families here, black families, mostly
So what
all Jews and Italians.
Jews and Italians.
All Jews and Italians. You didn't sass people back. People looked out for you. Now, you know your mother would not allow you to do that. It was a melting pot. It wasn't just from the South. It was everywhere. But you know, they didn't have. It was like I don't remember any Asian people. You can come from anywhere. Once you hit the projects, you were safe. You know, 2 or 3.
Now people kind of think opposite.
And the more you just try to get out of here by 4 o'clock.
What do you think happened from generation?
People don't. It's generation to generation. A lot of people don't. You know what? To get that done. People always say with the projects, and they think of single families.
Right.
Most of my everybody I knew had a mother and a father. They were
single parents.
They were rare. In this project when I was growing up, everybody had a mother and a father, unless the father died or the mother died. Everybody, you know, I can't tell you about how many. There were families with 10 or more children, and they had a mother and a father. The 80s. You know what? Crack may be starting the presence of it, the crack era. Because when I was coming up, it was the heroin era.
Right.
And
smack.
And it was safe. It was safe. And when the crack era had hit, you know.
And that was connected to the themes of the frieze, the historic artwork called Exodus and Dance. And there's a part of it that refers to Exodus, which talks about a migration to a place. So, you know, being able to hear from the community about what Kingsborough was like when they were growing up, that people used to come together, they used to hang out outside, they used to like look after each other's kids on the different walks, and that they've lost that. And so I think that there's a part of us that wants to tap into that nostalgia and thinking about what the future looks like, in returning to that. How do we craft or support some of the spaces that they already have so that they can continue to have this feeling of our outside spaces are the places where we all come together. You know, we have our own individual apartments where we do things individually, but then our outside spaces are where we can like mingle with one another, look after each other's kids, talk about our lives, and just like have community. And are they doing it right now, and why not? And how can this art be a part of making their outdoors a lot more exciting and interesting to be in, so they can cultivate that community energy around their outdoor spaces again.
Yeah, I think this piece of really the Great Migration became a really central theme. It's not only part of the original artwork, but you know, I think some of us take for granted that folks even carry that memory and that we have that story woven into the built environment. You know, my father was part of the Great Migration from Georgia to Cleveland. And as we were talking to a lot of the residents, a lot of their families come from the South, South Carolina, North Carolina. And I think 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we want that to still be something that people know, that people talk about, even from newer, you know, international migrations to New York. It's a huge part of our history that I think is really a like living history.
And what do you hope the community takes away from the project?
Well, we're not done yet.
Yeah. I think for one, definitely that they have the power to be creative in how they come together and how they transform their spaces. Mm-hmm. So I think bringing them on to this process of designing and changing design, and you know, the trade-offs, and we got to go this way, or maybe we can't quite do that. We got to do it like this. We got like that. All the conversations that are involved in our thinking, involving them in that, so that they can feel empowered that this might be something that they could do again in the future on their own if they want to. If they want to work with other artists. I mean, they have now this experience of working with architects and understand what architects can do, and how to use architects as a tool. And so I think I would love for them to take away just the feeling empowered to be able to do something like this creatively in their own community, that they have the ability to do that.
You just said it all. I mean, that's really it.
She ate that up.
She ate that.
She
ate that.
She
you know.
absolutely did.
I mean, yeah. It really I think we learned just as much from the project that we're kind of contributing and sharing for the folks we're working with. So it's like every project is different. Every community is different. And so I think we've had this incredible exchange with them in a pretty short amount of time that has like made both them and us feel more empowered.
Now, I said that was the last question, and I'm not a liar, but I do want to give you
Part 2 of the last
But
question.
I do want to give you both space to thank whoever you might want to thank, because I know even I'm sitting with two individuals. You guys probably work, or you both probably work with a lot of individuals who are helping out on the back end. I want to give you an opportunity to just say thank you to whoever you might want to thank during this process.
Gosh, there's so many. I think definitely our support staff, Pedro Cruz and Violet Greenberg, who work for each of our practices and have really been very instrumental in getting a lot of the work produced. Yes, we show up and we facilitate and we engage with community and we deal with the client and whatnot, but they are the ones that are cranking out the drawings and the images, physically.
And they're with us
when we
meetings.
engage, when we engage as well, and so and bringing just like a physical representation or some visualizations to the things that we talk about, we want to see, and how we want the design to formulate. I think definitely the community leaders like Mr. Weeks, who lives in the neighborhood, who's been to our meetings, Miss
Whitaker.
Miss Whitaker,
Angela, yeah.
Angela Whitaker, the Tenant Association president, who's just been so great in giving us guidance, and all of the other stakeholder team members, because we haven't spent a whole lot of time in Kingsborough. We don't really know and understand Kingsborough, and so every time we come in with ideas that we think could work, they either shut us down or they build us up. And that's been so important, because we want to make sure that this artwork is something that community feels like represents who they are, and is relevant to their culture and how they like to use their outdoors. So I would say the stakeholder group of folks at Kingsborough who have been so instrumental in helping us understand the local context.
She ate it up again.
She ate it up again. No, I'm just gonna also add in, all the other team who really are kind of helping to shape this project. The Public Housing Community Fund. Alex and Taryn are really incredible clients on this and organizers on this. And then the folks at NYCHA, we've been working with Videhi in particular. They, sometimes these organizations or agencies can feel like roadblocks, but everybody wants this to happen, and I think has been really great.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to make something like this happen. I thank you both for your work.
Thank
you.
And if you would like to just speak personally, what has been some of the personal takeaway for you while involving yourself in this project?
Well, I've been involved with this project since 2019, when we approached the city council and said, this is Black Lives Matter. This frieze represents Black Lives Matter, and that we need to do something to maintain that legacy. And we went to the city council person, and we got an allocation to start the renovation, and then additional grants and fundings came through. So the pleasure of seeing it get done, the panels being removed, the wall being torn down, going to the Bronx to see the panels under restoration, and them finally being reinstalled has been a great joy. So that has, but yes, we need to do more for our communities and activities. That's why I think it's important that we will have programming at the youth center on the grounds of Kingsborough houses that will help educate the young people about the importance of this artwork.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, personally, I think it's a matter of learning more and more about people's, again, connection to the site. It's always wonderful to, learn about other people who have left Kingsborough houses but want to return and want to, like you kind of mentioned earlier, experience the historical significance of the place and of the site. So I'm really excited for all of the upcoming programs from the art walks and other courses that can be done at the site to educate people about the artists.
As an artist myself, I want to thank you because oftentimes work gets produced, and as you said, we didn't know. We had no idea. At this point, the artist was anonymous. This is an artist who passed in 1989, I believe, and for you to resurrect and add name to this piece of work, it's important because we get lost in the history books a lot.
And this piece was getting lost because one of the things that really surprised me when I first started researching it, and I came across a book in a bookstore called Folk Art, and it was a photography book, and I opened it up and I saw all of these pictures that said Kingsborough's 1940s, and I had in my mind that it was stated that the artists objected to the frieze being in Kingsborough. And it didn't say why. Basically because it was originally supposed to be in the housing development in Harlem. It was supposed to be part of an amphitheater. And for whatever reason, the amphitheater did not get built. And so NYCHA or WPA decided to place it in Brooklyn in the Kingsborough houses. And I said to myself, being uneducated, said, well, he didn't want it to be in Kingsborough because there was probably no black folks living there. But then when I looked at this book from 1940s of this photographer who happened to be white, who happened to live in Kingsborough, and I saw the photographs of the children, the black and the white children playing together, of the interaction in the community, that it was a racially mixed community, that we end up making stereotypes, uneducated stereotypes. And so this documentation showed to me that we have to be open and we have to investigate the history. Yes, the frieze is about, the subject matter is specific to black folks, Exodus and dance, because Richmond Bartay was inspired by a play that used a lot of African American performers. The play was not written by an African American, but it was involved. It employed a lot of African American people. The play was actually called Green Pastures. So this was Richmond Bartay's inspiration. So that's why it's Exodus and dance. So that experience of finding out that what the truth is important, that we tend to make things up in our minds, not based upon facts, that we need to do more history, know more about the history of things in the culture. So that's why I think it's important. And one of the things we did do is use the photographs from the book to decorate the construction fence at the project. So that was a big eye-opener to me, that experience.
And I think I can add too, if I'm not mistaken, it's one of his largest pieces
Yes.
as well. I think in the new medium, in terms of cast concrete, which he wasn't typically working with prior to this piece being developed. So that's also just a very interesting choice in artist medium.
So, since the freeze and all this process, what has changed about the artwork, or has nothing changed? Like in terms of what it looked like 5 years ago versus what it looks like today?
No, yeah, I can say, I mean, well, the restoration is just that, you know, we want to kind of restore as much of the original frieze as much as possible. And so dealing with a lot of cracks and small, you know, kind of chipping of the cast concrete and repairing those small things. I know the main point of the restoration was to re-secure the panels onto the wall, and that took a great effort by Evergreen Architectural Arts and several other contractors to secure the frieze back onto a much larger wall, but, you know, kind of refitting it back into its original place. So if anything, the physical material of the frieze hasn't changed too much, but there were a few additions that needed to be made due to some loss in the material over time.
Yeah, and the whole area is going to be improved. There'll be lighting that's specific to the frieze so that it can be lit better, and especially at night. The area in front of it is being restored. They actually decided to move it back 20 feet and remove some trees that were affecting the frieze as it was. So it'll be a great restoration, and then at some point there'll be artwork created by community artists on the back of the frieze. So that's the next step after the construction and everything is finished. So it'll be a lot going on in here, and then additional with the story walk idea, there'll be a little cultural hub there. Yeah.
So as far as timeline, I want to go visit it right now, right? Just after having this conversation. But when would you think that the perfect time to actually bring this whole project to completion would be?
So we're hoping by next May, June, to have like an unveiling with not only the wall and the frieze restored, but in addition to the mural that Mr. Weeks just discussed on the back. The story walk will be throughout the entire campus. So it will occupy different nooks within the campus, different community spaces on the campus, and will be some form of small architectural intervention or small art pieces to, once again, capture not only the essence of the frieze, but I think of community member stories and their memories of the frieze throughout a broad kind of history there.
A lot of people don't know that Shirley Chisholm lived in Kingsborough at one point. So there's other people who, Rob Lohr, there's a couple of other football players, I understand, basketball players who came out of Kingsborough houses. So we're looking to also document that history.
There's a wonderful book out right now by Carol Arnold, who currently lives in North Carolina and grew up in Kingsborough. The book is named Growing Up Kingsborough, and it's got a lot of content from the residents that grew up in Kingsborough and had experiences around the wall or Exodus and Dance. It's a great portrayal of growing up in this community and how important this community was in terms of family and unity and coming together around the wall to experience all the joys in life, such as birthdays, anniversaries, and of course, NYCHA's Family Days. This project is possible thanks to the efforts of the Kingsborough Houses residents, led by the Tenant Association president and a stakeholder advisory group that's an intergenerational group of folks that are from the ages of 14 all the way up to older individuals that are helping guide the project over the next 2 years. We also have incredible community partners like Fulton Art Fair, the Weeksville Heritage Center, of course the New York City Housing Authority, and our funder of this program, the Mellon Foundation.